Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Casey Cooley.
Hello, everybody.
And Cody Geiler.
Hey, how's it going?
I don't know if I'm pointing the right way.
I'm
pointing at you on the screen,
Yeah.
but you could be over here. I don't know, right? All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this week as we dive into all things Star Wars. Again, got to say it every week, but hope everybody out there is staying safe and being mindful. And we are just here to help spread the Star Wars goodness.
Yes.
We are approaching, next week's time to talk about it, but, I feel like with all this coronavirus and everybody kind of social, it's kind of getting lost to me that May the 4th is upon us almost.
I
Right?
had no idea. I was talking to someone else at work about doing something for May the 4th. And I was like, holy crap, yeah, it's just like a week and a half away.
I know.
Crazy.
Anybody, what is the plan? I actually started thinking about things that we can do for the show. I don't know, but individually, Cody, what do you got planned? Anything?
Well, I'm definitely going to watch that new Mandalorian documentary.
Yeah.
That's the thing that kind of made me start to get into the mood for May the 4th is when they released the little preview for that. I was like, shoot, that's like coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're actually, it's good that they're actually releasing something like that. Not just that show, but the finale of Clone Wars too. So it is good to have an actual, I guess, Lucasfilm event sort of for May the 4th. I mean, because normally it's just what are the fans doing themselves, but now we finally have something provided to us to by Lucasfilm to celebrate Star Wars, and that's by watching this new stuff, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I've already told my wife and kids, we everybody's at home now, and they still have school kind of technically that week, right? It's kind of going into their last week. But I told them I'm actually going to probably literally take a day off, like put it in one of my PTOs at work. And say, look, we're just going to get Star Wars gear on.
Yeah,
we're going to cook some, make some blue milk, make some Star Wars snacks. And I said, I'm just going to watch Star Wars all day. I'm going to watch the conclusion of this Clone Wars. Going to watch that Mandalorian thing and probably watch that several times. Whatever. Let's just make a day out of it with all this chaos that's happening. So
might be a new thing to springboard into the Clone Wars and then just watch episode 3.
Absolutely.
Just pick up right there.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's
really good.
Might have to do that. Yeah, see where the parallels are. So speaking of, let's get into that. Last week saw the beginning of the final story arc in the Clone Wars with the Siege of Mandalore arc. Old Friends Not Forgotten was the episode title for episode 9 of season 7. It's another conversation. I'm not still totally sold that this is the end of the Clone Wars, but we'll see. But this episode, there's probably a lot to talk about. But Cody, I'll let you start. Where were you, and how do you feel about what you saw in that episode?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say it's probably some of the best Star Wars that's come out in a while. Some of the reason I feel like why, I mean, we talked about how the animation has just gotten like light years better than where the Clone Wars movie started, I mean, it was good back then, but I mean, where they're at now, it just looks so great. And then of course you've got Ahsoka doing these heroic Jedi, jumping from gunship to ship and things like that. And it's just like, it just feels like fun. And then when they brought Anakin in, and it's sort of this parallel to Luke, standing off against the First Order, it drew a lot of parallels to that. So like that part mixed with some of the John Williams iconic themes done by Kevin Kiner just really all made it feel like it just felt like classic, fun Star Wars. It actually reminded me of that feeling of when you watch Return of the Jedi and Luke is on the sail barge, and then he finally the lightsaber pops up. Yeah. It's like here we go, we're Jedi, we're gonna like. It just felt like just fun.
Yeah. Case.
Absolutely. This, I mean, just even, I mean, everybody's been celebrating even how it just the episode started, and how it just with the title, and how the show is introduced. It just feels different. It just, before the animation even started, you're going into it thinking like this is something special, and just by how they're presenting it, and it definitely feels like that this is more than just an episode in a series, in a season of a show. It's, this feels like we just got a prologue of a movie, basically. I feel like we just got the first act of a film. So it felt that way. I mean, everything that they did in it was down to how they animated the camera, the lighting, which they have been doing great this whole season, but especially this episode. There's just so much technique in this, care taken into it, to where, Filoni and the crew talk about it in the Clone Wars download. Is, they've thrown everything into this. They've taken such great care into it, and making this truly a special moment. And this episode was great. A lot of moments where, reunions and things where you've been waiting for so long to happen.
Yeah,
like Anakin and Ahsoka, Rex, and finally getting a conclusion. And you're right. I mean, I'm also thinking that this won't actually be the end, but maybe at least in episodic form. I don't know.
Right.
But
yeah,
that's the hopeful side of me. But this definitely feels like it's concluding. Like this arc definitely feels like it's going to at least put a cap on the journey of these characters that was started in the first film, and the first Clone Wars film. So where it goes after this, I don't know. But this arc has definitely lived up to, I think, what everybody's been hyping it to be.
Yeah, you're right. I think I think this, as Filoni has stated, this whole series has evolved into the story of Ahsoka and Rex, and that's how it will end. These two are on Mandalore, and we know, as we'll talk about here, the last two episodes, their descriptions came out. We'll find out what happened to them when Order 66 happened, and it will be a clear lead-in to what happens in Rebels, I think, right? Which is, I think, Filoni's intent. So, but you're right. I think we talked about it last week, Case. I think this would have. I know they want to keep the anticipation going, but it's like this would have, to me, been okay to end on a movie, as a movie. Put it out there, and honestly, maybe timed it better so that the release was May the 4th. Where everybody sat and watched a 2-hour Clone Wars movie that concluded the entire series, right? I mean, wow.
That would have been epic.
Epic, right? In fact, you still could do that. I actually think that I would be okay with it if you still release this week, still release next week, but then on the 4th, just make a movie out of it and let me see how it ends in a movie format, right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I'd still be okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they've taken so many other steps into making it a movie other than just making it a movie.
Exactly.
Again, like the title, how it opens, it's not it didn't have at all that same Clone Wars opening, besides the fact that they still used the narration there to tell you what's happening. But it
somewhat summed up the entire series, not just what happened recently.
It definitely felt like, watching it. This is like one of the only episodes of the whole series that I've watched back to back, like in a row, like twice in a row. Other ones, it's like it's been months or years since I've gone back and watched more episodes. Yeah. But this one definitely required a second viewing, and just watching it again, they almost did this. They almost started this episode in a way where they're letting people. I don't know. It's almost like it's for people who haven't seen this in a while, and what I mean by that is, like that, like the opening where they show the whole like previously, like but like they show everything, they kind of glimpse everything, and they build it up to feel very much like an end. But also that opening shot with Obi-Wan, it's like it's almost as if how they revealed Obi-Wan in this episode. It's like we haven't seen him in forever, and it's like, oh, there he is, there's the guy. But like we just saw him like 3 episodes ago or 4 episodes ago in the first arc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how they've just totally, I feel like, changed gears with this part 1 as they're calling it.
Well, it's mindful of the audience, I feel like, too, because like you said, you could probably have somebody that picks up where Ahsoka leaves the Order and then just dive right into this. Now, you'd miss some stuff. I think the Ahsoka arc was beneficial for her character development, but the Bad Batch doesn't play into this in any way. It's sort of a separate story, and it's got its own place in the timeline. I don't think they've confirmed yet. But, I think that's something that they're mindful of. Some people may jump right in right here at Siege of Mandalore.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it works because of how they set it up.
Well, I think that's where the Rex storylines have to come in, because the beginning of season 6, the Lost missions, that was the whole chip, Order 66 with Tubbs and Fives. So with that may lend itself a little bit to why Rex is going to be okay. Maybe he figured it out and got his chip out. And then the Bad Batch thing is kind of his conclusion with Echo and what happened with Echo and getting him back. And now I think if you saw I don't know if you saw the preview episode, they did a preview clip for this week's episode, and it was Jesse. Jesse is the other kind of big name clone that is known, and he got taken by Maul. So it's like it's Rex and Ahsoka. They're closing their relationships, and they're it's really tying together. I think we're going to see a really good ending, or I guess ending semi-beginning to their relationship that's going to continue on later. And
right.
Because that clip, I've seen it a couple times too. That clip in Rebels when Ahsoka gets reunited with Rex, I mean, that itself is going to mean more after these next few weeks, right? I mean, it's stuff like that is just really cool to think about. So
yeah.
As we look ahead to this next episode, episode 10, it's called The Phantom Apprentice. Kind of weird, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what that means, I guess.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. But beyond that, so we've got descriptions now for the last 2 episodes. Episode 11, which is entitled Shattered, and episode 12, the final episode, called Victory and Death. So, Shattered, the description goes, after capturing Maul on Mandalore, Ahsoka's journey to the Jedi Council is disrupted when Order 66 is declared, turning her world upside down. So, well, I'll read number 12, then we'll talk about them. The last episode is just given like this. Ahsoka and Rex must use their wit and skills to survive the turbulent end of the Clone Wars. So, we will get Order 66, and we will get Order 66 prior to the last episode.
Yeah, that's insane. And listening again to the Clone Wars download, and Filoni mentioning how he's always thought it would overlap, like the story will overlap with Order 66. And I love that he's always been consistent with that, because we've heard that. You heard that years ago at Celebration. We count, and there were just through interviews and stuff where he's always thought that those stories would tie in, and I just love that this vision of his has been kept pretty pure and not really messed up at all over the years or changed too much. Like his stories, his and George Lucas's stories that they wanted to tell, it's still that same vision, which is very, it's very comforting to know that. And again, it's just based on what we're getting, it's just confirming like how right he is for the job and telling these stories and kind of carrying the torch from George Lucas. So I love that. I love that it's overlapping. And like you guys were just saying about how it's kind of changing perspective of stories we've already gotten. I watched Revenge of the Sith recently again, and already it's changing how I'm watching it, and in each episode we're going to be getting, it's going to change it again. And I just love now that when I watch the movie, that it's like almost every scene, every line spoken, not to be too over generalizing, but like everything now is being interpreted in new ways, which is crazy. All of Anakin's actions feel like they have a different weight to it. Because now you're thinking like, about Ahsoka in kind of the back of your mind, like, what is she doing? How would she react? And, and is he thinking about her during this part? Not just Padme, but is he thinking about all of his relationships? So it's a whole lot of fun. All different.
Yeah, the dogmatic side of the Jedi Order comes into play in this last episode, where Ahsoka and Obi-Wan don't see eye to eye. And, Bo-Katan is kind of caught in the middle, and, it really shows, how the Jedi Order have gotten to a place where they can't even get something done because they got to go run it by the council. And maybe that's how it's always been. But, with something like that, you can really see where Ahsoka is just completely split. And like you're saying, Casey, it kind of makes you think now when you see Revenge of the Sith with Anakin, you start to realize why Qui-Gon had issues with the council, and you start to realize, it's not just that he's upset that he wasn't granted the rank of master. He is upset, but it's all these other things that have happened leading up to this point that caused that fracture. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and who better? Who better to make those connections and make you rethink how you watch these films than Filoni now? I think, because I think George was always going to have that effect while he was making the Clone Wars, and the Clone Wars, as Filoni has always said, this is George Lucas's stories and content and all that stuff. So I think, which we'll talk about later in this episode, but it's Filoni is he's got it right, and he's doing it right, and it's really, and I think those things are in his mind. How are we getting to episode 3? Are we doing anything that's contradicting the story? We don't want to put anything here that's not going to make sense. So because a lot of people can easily argue like, well, Filoni or Ahsoka and Rex aren't in episode 3, and that's kind of a continuity issue. Well, I think we're going to figure out why they're not, right? So, so very interesting episode descriptions there. It's funny. I went back and reread because I wanted to refresh my memory on what happened to Maul actually between mid-season 5 when he was captured by Sidious. And then now, and there was a comic, right, that came out for unfinished episodes called The Son of Dathomir, and I went back and reread that, all the things that happened, which is actually crazy. I forgot how crazy the episodes would have been. Those episodes would have been ridiculous. I mean, him facing off against Grievous, him catching Dooku and Grievous, holding them captive, getting freed by his Mandalorians, led by Saxon. But the one thing that was funny that I didn't realize with the title of that was when the chant that him and his Mandalorians have is victory and death.
Oh, okay.
In that comic, they was like, we're gonna kill the Jedi. Here's to victory and death. I'm like, there it is. So
is it victory or is it victory or death?
The title's victory and death
of the episode, but isn't the Mandalorian chant victory or death or something like that?
Maybe it was. I didn't actually. I don't know. I don't know. I can actually look that up. I got the digital comic, but
I wonder if the title is sort of a change of that in a way.
Right. I didn't know if Maul, if that was the connection there or not, because I am part curious if Order 66 happens while Maul's captured. It's obviously what happens to Maul.
Yeah, I mean, this has definitely made me think about how it can go based on these little log lines, these summaries. Is like I'm definitely get in my head like thinking like, okay, there's gonna be, it's gonna be Ahsoka and Maul kind of trapped together. Sorry if my internet's kind of cutting out. I might be glitching here a little bit. But no, it's like I can totally see it being Maul and Ahsoka together, and then having to work together to kind of escape the clones. To escape Order 66 with Rex as well. So maybe the Mandalorians and Ahsoka and Rex and Maul like all try to fight their way out of it, which would be very different and pretty cool to see.
Yeah, actually, I just looked it up. Cody, you're right. It's victory or death.
Mm.
So Maul raises the black saber or the dark saber and says, "The war you have waited your entire lives to fight is upon us, my brothers. Victory or death." And then everybody's victory or death. So I read that.
This they don't get a choice. It's victory and death.
It's both.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's both. Yeah. Okay, so that's coming. Let's see some other quick headlines that we should talk about. One, I think I knew this, but I came across it again in my Twitter feed today. San Diego Comic-Con officially canceled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is in mid-July. Not boding too well for Star Wars Celebration.
no.
What's your guys' thoughts about that?
Well, I've submitted our podcast application, our live show application. So I'm at least hopeful that if we get accepted, they can like carry our tickets over till next celebration if they postpone it or whatever they do. No, it's very I think they're gonna cancel the in-person convention. Now, I'm very hopeful that they still have some sort of virtual version of it. I mean, by that point, I like to hope that there's some the restrictions will be a little more relaxed. So maybe they can at least get some virtual panels together where at least our authors and filmmakers and celebrities and all these people can still maybe be on stage, just spaced out, so that we at least get that experience. And it's not just like a Zoom type of thing where we just see a bunch of squares of all of our panelists and all that stuff. But I like to hope that they still have some event like that to keep the hype going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed kind of inevitable. I mean, E3, Comic-Con, and now most likely Celebration. I mean, it's further along in the summer. So like you said, Casey, maybe some restrictions are up, but it just seems like they're not going to get a lot of people trying to come in from different, states, countries, all over.
Especially into California where it's, they've had it one of the hardest hit states. So
yeah. When you talk about gatherings, a place like Celebration where you've got close to 50,000 people, it's going to be probably too soon. I'm definitely curious on whether or not they will do a virtual or a streaming thing, or they would postpone the attack. Because we talked about Case, like what are they going to announce?
Right.
What don't we know already? We'll get ready to talk about a new series that's already in the works already here soon, and it's like they're making announcements as we go. I think the only thing we would, I think about what are the big weekend panels that could be. Mandalorian season 2, obviously. Is there another animated series in the works that we don't know about? Is there going to be finally a film update with a director, or even a whatever, I don't know. Ryan Johnson's is he still doing anything? Who knows? It just seems like there's so much in the dark, and maybe that's what they're waiting for. But I can't imagine if they postpone it that they wouldn't start at least announcing something.
Because everything's halted. I mean, you're right. There's Cassian's. I had they say 6 weeks of production kind of already done. Kenobi's obviously halted, and everything's halted. So there won't really be anything to show besides Mandalorian.
Yes.
I mean, it's just with Dave Filoni's kind of his history. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was another animation show in the works, and that they already have maybe an episode completed, or at least have it all recorded voice wise, but maybe some rough animations here and there. So yeah, I don't know what they could do, but obviously there's so many other panels that they fill the whole weekend up with, and the High Republic would be still a huge talking point, and they've got they can still reveal more about that to give us a little bit more information. And I actually just saw something, I think, on Reddit today, talking about people who are doing some investigating at all these other trademarks that Lucasfilm has claimed for the High Republic. That kind of people are leading to speculate how they're kind of spreading this new era more than just books. There's more rumors now about video games. There's more rumors about so many different properties that they're working on now. So, but other than that, there's really not much else, new projects that they can at least show us. They can just talk about it, which would be cool. It's still, I mean, hey, it's talking about Star Wars. You can fill a whole weekend up with that, but not show what it all would be about.
Yeah, it feels like we might be a whole nother year away from a film announcement, just because the film's not coming out until 2022.
Yeah,
that's still a projected. Who knows really? Yeah. I guess I think, we can't get to filming.
Disney did show I've seen a lot of different studios have been announcing new release dates, and I think some Marvel stuff all shifted, but none of the Star Wars movie for 2022 didn't have like a new date that was announced. Now, again, maybe that's not been confirmed that it is or isn't happening, but
I mean, unless hopefully they have a lot of it. They have it scripted or something at least, because if they're able to start shooting at the end of this year, then they can see them being ready for a December 2022 release date. I think if they're gonna start production early 2021, I mean, I guess you can just rush and get it done, but I'll start to worry about that if they try to keep that date. But weird times.
Weird times. Next little bit of news got dropped today, actually, on This Week in Star Wars, which is their weekly news, that a new audiobook is dropping, new and somewhat.
It's like adaptation.
Yeah, it's you're right. So one of the most popular characters, if no one. We've talked about her a little bit on this show, and if you don't know who she is, I feel like she's gaining some major popularity, very much in the vein of Ahsoka did with the Clone Wars, but she has only been in literature form. Dr. Aphra, who has a comic series and is starting a second volume comic series. I think it's either out or it's about to come out. But anyway, there is Del Rey is putting out a audiobook series, or not series, but a audiobook that is featuring the original, the volume 1 storylines, I guess, adaptation, like Casey just said. Basically, the article says that StarWars.com excited to reveal Dr. Aphra, an audiobook original, expanded adaptation of the Kinda Good, Kinda Bad Archaeologist's introduction in Marvel's Darth Vader series. So she was first introduced in Darth Vader and then eventually got her own series. In the story, Aphra makes a deal with the Sith Lord, never the best idea, and begins a memorable misadventure. You can get a first look at the cover below. So here's the cover. It's narrated by a full cast, very similar to Dooku Jedi Lost. And the author it's written by Sarah Kuhn. So that is coming July 21st. So I feel what's weird is that I feel like, unlike a TV series or a film release where you know what's coming out. I feel like Del Rey has put out these release dates for these books, but then all of a sudden these other ones have just been popping in. Like, like I remember looking like, oh, we're getting 4 books this year, which included, the adaptation for Rise, Thrawn. There was one later, the Queen's Peril.
Right.
And I was like, okay, we're getting 3 books. And then all of a sudden, High Republic pops up. This pops up. It's like, so anyway.
They can have multiple authors. It's just crazy. It's like, it's just, they can, get it out a little faster.
I guess when they're ready, when they're ready to release it, they're ready to release it. I don't know. So you guys going to listen to this?
I'm a big fan of the audio drama. I mean, I know they've only done 1, but Dooku Jedi Lost, honestly, is probably one of my favorite of the new material they've done in the publishing side. I mean, I guess it's not, they made a script of it, but,
Right.
It just had a lot of really interesting lore of, the Jedi when Dooku was, still an initiate and training and whatnot. So, I'm honestly haven't read all of the Aphra series. So it might be kind of nice to like come in fresh with this version of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what kind of lore, because I know a lot of her story takes place in the original trilogy era still. But I mean, I liked it a lot. I thought it was really well done, really well casted on the last one. I haven't seen if they've released a cast list for this though.
I don't think they have. I've tried to look for that too.
I haven't seen it yet.
I was really eager to see who was in it. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, it's a strange choice for an adaptation, and not a purely original story for Dr. Aphra, because you're right, she's definitely becoming very popular, and it's actually in some ways a little more impressive than Ahsoka because she's only been in literature form.
Yeah.
Whereas Ahsoka started off in a movie than a show, but this is very impressive for this character. But yeah, I'm excited because I love. Like Cody, I love the audio dramas, even though, I'm semi-familiar with the story. To actually hear a full cast, acted out will be a lot of fun. And the Star Wars did say in their article that they will be, adding, a couple of other scenes. So it's a little expanded edition of it. So you'll get some new material with her. But yeah, to hear Darth Vader, to be able to put voices to some of these characters. This will be the first time we've heard a voice for Dr. Aphra. So, and her droid characters as well. So that'll be pretty fun to finally hear it. And so I'm excited. But yeah, I would have much preferred an original story, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the character. I think I'm not exactly sure, to be honest, like what the full appeal is for the character. I mean, in the comic, when she was introduced as in the Vader series, she was very much just hired by Vader. I mean, she's an archaeologist. She was hired to go find an artifact, right? And the funny, appealing part about her, honestly, are the 2 droids. Right. Kind of assassin droids that run around with her. They look like it's kind of like an R2 3PO combo, except they're killers. And so they kind of add a lot of comedic elements to the story. And, I think what we're getting, to be honest, I think we're getting a little more seeds planted and stories that are trying to expand and get her in a different medium to see if it catches on with some fans, because I have a suspicion that she definitely is one that could pop up in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think she's a very big possibility to show up there. So I think they're kind of trying to expand their story and get her out there a little bit more and see how people react to it. So it'd be another one of them that started in a different medium and makes its way into live action, and I think that she's definitely getting to that point, because I think she appeals to people because I've heard her referenced as a female Han Solo, right? And
Solo it's like that in Indiana Jones.
Yes, exactly.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Female Indiana Jones, basically. Yes.
Well, it's interesting. Like she's totally this obscure person in the galaxy. She is tough and she kind of holds her own against the bounty hunter and the scum and villainy. But it's just so odd that when you pair her with Darth Vader of all people, and she kind of hangs with him. She just hangs in there, and she's not cast away easily. He doesn't just kill her.
Yeah.
It's like it's so interesting. It's like of all people, like this random to use a term that's used a lot in Star Wars, this nobody is given this crazy opportunity to be with Darth Vader, and she survives. So it is interesting to that sense. I haven't read enough of her stories to really invest myself in her character, but I mean, just being at the last celebration, all the cosplayers of Dr. Aphra just tells me of how well loved she already is. Cool, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking too of the voice cast, and I was just thinking, like, I'm almost thinking that Anthony Daniels will be the voice of 000. I wonder if they'll do that. Somebody, I just remember that somebody saw. I don't know if he tweeted this or someone with him tweeted it, but basically there's a picture floating around of him made his own makeshift audio booth. And it's like, he's working on a project, can't talk about it, but like, I wonder if it's this. I wonder if he's voicing 000. So that would be really interesting to hear Evil C-3PO.
Yeah. He would have so much fun with that too.
Yes, he would. Yeah.
No, I'd love to hear him during that. I wish they would. And I think I said this before on here, but I wish they would. I know it costs money. It would mean so much to these audiobooks if they did have full casts, not just full cast, because I know this is a little different because this is actually almost like a play, right? It's just dialogue. There's no narrator, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I know when you do an audiobook or a true book, you have narration in there, and then but I just wish that the characters were voiced by people, and like Mark Thompson, who does a lot of the Star Wars books. I mean, he's so good because he does different voices, but you can tell he's not doing a female voice that well, right? So it would be cool to have that. I think that would heighten people's awareness of the books or audiobooks. I think the audiobooks are just they're Star Wars narration. They're Star Wars without the video. It's incredible because I'm listening to Rise of Skywalker right now, and I mean Thompson's man. I mean I just got through the scene on Octu, with Luke and Ray, and I mean he sounds exactly like Mark Hamill. I mean, I'm like, they got Mark Hamill to do this, but it's unbelievable. But when he goes back to Ray, it's like, that doesn't sound like Daisy Ridley, But I love Mark Thompson. I mean, I love Mark Thompson. So anyway, Dr. Aphra coming in July. Real quick, just quick thoughts on, because this hasn't been fully. I don't think it has been fully confirmed. None of this stuff has really been fully confirmed from Lucasfilm. But is it Leslie Headland has been tapped to helm a brand new Disney Plus series.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I said her name right. She's known for Russian Doll, which I think one of you guys explained to me what that was, but I didn't know what that was. Thoughts real quick on her helming the next Disney series that's in development right now.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard any interviews yet. It might be Headland or Headland, I don't know. But co-creator and co-showrunner, which is just crazy. I'm not familiar with her work. Like, I haven't actually watched it. I just know of she's just gathered a lot of awards for her work. So no doubt she has the talent. do this. I'm very surprised they just went in. They've already announced a new show. Really, I'm very surprised that there's already in development another live action show to this stage where they can kind of comfortably confirm who the showrunner is. So that means it's just obviously that much further down the road. But I mean, the little blurb that they even talk about is, everything's being kept under wraps, but it's being talked about as a female-centric series that takes place in a different part of the Star Wars timeline than the other projects. So that excites me that it's a different era. I don't know, obviously, if it's before everything or after everything. I like to hope that it's current and it's after everything. So that
but what does that mean? Does that mean a different era from the sequel trilogy? Because it could be still between like 3 and 4. Because that's kind of an untapped area, right? That's what we're getting from Obi-Wan and Cassian, right? So,
yeah,
I didn't know if it. I don't think it really meant. I don't know if it really meant outside of the Skywalker saga, but maybe it did.
I'm reading it as that, just and especially outside of Mandalorian and Cassian and Obi-Wan in the sequel trilogy. But since they're the most current, and it mentions a different part in the other projects, and since those are kind of the current other project, the sequel trilogy is now done, but the current other projects are in those specific timelines. So I'm thinking that it's bookending that kind of era. So I'm just kind of optimistically thinking it's bookending it on larger scales, like way past it or way before it. But yeah, you're right though. It's vague. They're going to be vague until they.
I got it. You want fans to watch this like crazy right now? You do between episode 1 and 2, and you get Natalie Portman back.
Ooh,
that's what you do.
Fan flippin-tastic. She would do it.
I think she would too.
Would she?
I think she would, because this has a lot of this announcement has a lot of revolving of it's a female-centric crew, so it's definitely kind of pushing forward with that movement, and I think she's definitely been a champion for allowing more women in the industry to kind of get their chance. So I would say Natalie Portman definitely would be on board being a part of this project if that's on the table. I would be on board.
It could be a part of her little comeback tour. She's coming back to Marvel, going to Thor. I mean, not that she needed to come back, but
she's already she's with
coming
the Disney
back
family
to
already.
Properties.
Yeah. It's like closure to kind of, I feel like, some old wounds that she's had, with Marvel, and kind of like definitely saying like she can still be a part of these stories and make them very professional and classy, because just because the conversations we've had on this show about how Padme she still has so many stories to tell.
Tons.
I would love it. I would love that.
And let's make no mistake about it, she still looks like she's in her teens, basically, right? It's she doesn't age, right? So even though it's been 20 years, I think she could still pull it off.
I mean, that's really interesting. Like, would they go the route of a show with characters that we know, to get people hooked, or are they thinking? Because I read it the way that Casey did, that it's either pre-1 or like post 9 for whatever reason. That's sort of how I read it. Now, of course, none of this is from Lucasfilm, so we don't really have words to dissect and go off of. I think the whole way, it's all rumor based, but the whole way it was kind of put out was a little bit weird, because there's some other rumors that are going along with it, being that it's centered on a female character, but the fact that I forget her name, but is it Leslie?
Yeah, Leslie.
Yeah. So one of her sort of claims to fame is with Russian Doll. It was sort of this show that was like a Groundhog Day modern version, and looks really good, but it was done by all female creative team. So from the writers to the showrunner, producers and stuff was all female. So it's got a lot of like that wrapped into the announcement. And I feel like I would rather them just say, here's a really good creator that we're hiring, and here's a really good story we're telling, not say, oh, it's just going to be the show that's about a female. So like, that's why you should care. You know, like it just seems like they should, like they did with The Mandalorian. Here's Jon Favreau. He's really great at what he does. And then it's going to be called The Mandalorian and it's going to be really cool. And here's why. You know, it feels like it's kind of got this whole stigma around it, but that may be just because of the rumors that are kind of swirling around.
Yeah. You know, when I look at everything you guys are saying, it's like I just read in a different part of the Star Wars timeline than other projects. So I just a different part of the Star Wars timeline. I feel like to me the Star Wars timeline still is 1 through 9. Like that's the Star Wars timeline. Like we don't have anything really beyond that yet. That's kind of why I think it's still going to land in that because it would be to me a little risky to go outside of that timeline and completely introduce all new characters with no absolute connection, unless it is High Republic, which I don't think it would be, but unless you're going to go down that road of High Republic, because High Republic will be out for a while after this, by the time this hits. So I don't know. I think I don't know. I still feel like it's going to land between 1 and 9 somewhere. But you're right. I think with Obi-Wan and Cassian's in that timeline, you got Mandalorian still in this time part. So it's like that's why I kind of was thinking where are the gaps still? Right. And it seems like between 1 and 2, there's 10 years there that we haven't really dived into, except for the Padme books. So anyway, more news I'm sure as that comes out, but that's kind of the reporting that's going on. Again, no confirmation fully from Lucasfilm, but we haven't heard anything from Lucasfilm, not even on Cassian or anything. So
right, yeah.
Okay, so the last kind of topic I wanted to kind of get into a little bit as we wrap up here is let's talk a little bit about this gallery series that Disney is putting out on Disney Plus starting on May the 4th. So it's what it seems like, I think from it, it's Disney Gallery is the show, which looks like it's gonna take a behind the scenes look of some making ofs, and The Mandalorian is the first one up, and it's an 8-part. I think it was an 8-part docuseries, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be released. I think it starts on Monday, May the 4th, but then starts releasing every Friday after that. Now, they released a trailer today of the series, and it showed a ton of behind-the-scenes footage, a lot of Filoni and Favreau sitting around the round table. It was really neat seeing them all with all the directors, and then they were with the cast. And I just wanted to kind of touch on a little bit about what Filoni said, because Filoni talked about what Star Wars really means, what he thinks it really means, and what the whole intent that George had. And I'm telling you, I told Cody, I told Casey this after I watched it. Like when I heard Filoni talking like that, like I started tearing up. Like I was like, man. And I texted you guys right away. I was like, this guy gets it, man.
Yeah,
this guy gets it more than anybody I've read or seen or talked to in the last 5 years since this acquisition. And I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what he said and how much you guys agree or disagree with what he's talking about.
100% agree. And honestly, it's specifically when he mentions, for me, it was like when he was mentioning that's, at the heart, Star Wars is about family, which, we've all had these, us here have those conversations offline just over time. We've always had those conversations of what Star Wars means. And I feel like we've always kind of talked around that same idea, that it is about family or a group of friends, going on this adventure. That usually the great Star Wars stories has that element somewhere. And I've really been feeling that recently, just with Clone Wars, coming back and seeing that again. So it was great to just hear him say it, to hear him
Yeah.
put a definitive stamp on what it means. So it's literally like that. I take that, like, now that really someone else besides me has put that into words. It's like I take that as the gold standard of how I kind of judge Star Wars movies or stories. I do think that it means different things to different people. But honestly, it does seem like at the heart, any true Star Wars, like when it feels like how it felt in the original trilogy, that's how everybody compares it to. Like when it, for a story to really capture that, it's usually because it's about family.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're friends or real family, it's usually because of that. So, whether or not it has the Force, whether or not the Force plays a huge part into it, like Rogue One, for example, those characters, it's family. It's, even though they barely know each other,
Yeah.
that bond they have is very much like a family, and it's Jen and her family. So it's like those two circles, and the Force plays a little part in it. So you have that familiar element, but the nostalgia always, I think, has a part in it. But really strip all that away, because that's, like Cody, you and I have had those conversations about the future of Star Wars. Can it survive without nostalgia? It can, if they follow Dave Filoni's guidance here. It's about family. It's got to be about family.
Well, and I agree with both of you. I think Filoni's comments are on point, and he even talks about it at one point in the little preview. It's sort of what he learned from George. George created all of this, and that's why we're all able to be talking about it right now, is because he felt very strongly about this idea of family. He told this story about a family, the Skywalkers, and how that extended around, and the sort of rise and fall, and then eventual rise again in some ways. So I mean, I think that's it. That's poignant. I mean, it's so interesting. You were just breaking down Rogue One and these other stories. When we first heard about the Mandalorian, we're like, oh, cool, it's going to be this awesome, rugged bounty hunter. It's going to be the grittier Star Wars. And then it turns out, in a welcome surprise, it was some of that. But then it's this story about, they find, the Mandalorian and, Baby Yoda, for lack of not having a name, they are forced together and find each other. And now they're this family, they're this, like a tribe of two or whatever. So
did the armorer
I just think,
call
like,
him the father?
What's that?
Didn't the armorer, did she call him his father?
She said something about, like, you're its father or something.
Oh, yeah.
You'll have to take care of him like a father or something. So it's very much it's really interesting that at the heart of the Mandalorian, that involves Filoni and Favreau now, and the newer Star Wars that we're able to watch, it really does have that family ingrained in it. You throw in Cara Dune, and then Carl Weathers, because
Grief.
it's Carl. Yeah, Grief Karga.
It's Carl.
You throw in all of them, and now they're this sort of ragtag family, and that's exactly what the original trilogy felt like. You got Luke and his family struggles, but then you throw in Han and Leia, and it turns out Leia is a sister. But they all sort of just came together by
together. Yeah.
And what's great, to kind of going further with the Mandalorian, is that the season 1 ended with them kind of splitting up a little bit, like Cars with Grief and Mando's with the child trying to find. But we know that they're going to come back, and that's how the original trilogy was. It's like they meet each other, they form this very close bond very quickly. Then stories take them apart, but they always come back, and they always find their way back to each other, like and stay connected like a family does. So yeah, I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah, so I was actually just noticing, Cody, you got the child. Yeah,
the child.
You got the child shirt on right now. That's awesome. Yeah, he and Filoni family, and what he said, George was, I think a couple other things that he mentioned that was really key was, George said this is all meant for kids too. Like this, and don't lose sight of that. Like, you can't lose sight that the kids are the future generations, and to pass that on and make sure they're aware of these stories, right? Because we were at least, I was a kid. You guys weren't even born yet, but I was a kid when this guy, when the original trilogy was out, and I mean, look what it has done. It's that those ideals and those thoughts and those values have stayed with me my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And as long and thankfully George was still, in my mind anyway, George was still running the prequels when you two were growing up, right?
Yeah.
And you got those same values in those. And another word he mentions too that he said was not only family, was hope.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always that aspect of hope in these movies, and fitting enough, the original movie is called A New Hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had hope. You know, rebellions are built on hope. You know, it's like no matter what happens in all these movies, there's always hope that things will get better and things can get better. And, you know, it's funny, you made me think, Casey, whenever somebody that I get introduced to, or it seems like these days in the business we're in, as we meet new clients and new people, and I feel like I get introduced a lot. Maybe you guys do too. I get introduced as the Star Wars guy, right? The guy that knows Star Wars, and 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 obviously I'm finding that more and more people are into Star Wars, and you start having these conversations, and it's always kind of brought up a little bit. Well, what do you love most about Star Wars? Why are you such a fanatic? And you know, and of course I gravitate to think more towards. Well, look, I love the aspect of the Jedi. You know, I love the aspect of the Force, and I'm a really big fan of good and justice and peace and all this stuff, and the struggle against the dark side and all this stuff, and great characters. But then ultimately, though, it does go back to what Filoni said. I just need to start saying, you know what? It's about family and hope, and it's such a good teaching methods and teaching of values for kids and even adults in a sense. And it's like these things that you just get planted with early on that you grow up believing in, and it's just phenomenal. It's unbelievable that we have this, and I don't know why. I'm going to say I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, but I don't know why they're not making Filoni like the creative head of everything Star Wars. Like, maybe they offered it to him and he said no, but why aren't they paying this guy anything he wants to take over Star Wars until he wants to not take over, not do it anymore, right? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need to be the president of Lucasfilm. That's not his role. He just needs to have creative control over the stories and the direction of these stories. You know,
like Story Group needs to basically report to him.
Yeah,
totally.
In a sense,
that would actually be a very fitting role, because then it's a way you can work with a filmmaker, an author, whoever. Insert your creative here, but then he's not necessarily having to always be the one writing the story, telling the story. It'd be great if he does continue to, because he's really good at it. And, I honestly, like, before I, knew as much about Filoni, I always thought, oh, okay, he's just the animation guy. Like, that's what I thought for a long time.
Right.
And then you dive in, you watch through Rebels and see more of the stories he's able to tell, after Clone Wars, and then now coming back to Clone Wars. And then with The Mandalorian, it seems like he's got much more of a role than we might have realized when it got announced with Jon Favreau. Now, I still think Jon Favreau has done a lot on it, and he's credited with writing a lot more of the episodes. But I have to believe that Favreau is a smart enough guy that he's going to lean on Filoni and his expertise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Dave. I fully would vote for him to be in charge over there. I think it might. I don't know. I think they still have. There's still issues with, the Cassian Andor series. They had to change writers and different things like that. And you just wonder if you had somebody like him who was sort of like a checkpoint for a lot of these things, would it help them sort of weed out the people they're bringing in and hiring? It seems like that's some of the problem they're having. And I don't know if that's something Filoni would want to do, more of that like hiring process or vetting of people. But you have to wonder if he could very quickly realize, if somebody gets Star Wars by just sitting down and having a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and them saying, you know, what is Star Wars to you? And then he could very quickly be like, yeah, they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But
yes.
I don't know if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, very true. I think any Star Wars fan that is a filmmaker, you know, you look at any of these directors, you know, Deborah Chow or Bryce Dallas Howard or Taika Waititi, any of those guys that were sitting there, they're all claimed to be Star Wars fans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a Star Wars fan, I mean, again, if he was in that position, why wouldn't you want to talk to Filoni and is this right? Is what we're making correct? You know, going to hit the right values and tell the right stories to attract those audiences like they did, you know, when George was running this thing. I don't know, you know, because you know, people joke about it. I mean, he pretty much is the George Lucas clone. I mean, he's I mean, he did what George was doing, making the Clone Wars alongside Filoni. I mean, that laid the groundwork for all of this. There's no doubt about that. And like you said, Cody, I think when you look at Rebels is a clear example that Filoni knows how to tell stories with new characters. He can create new stories, new characters, and fit that into a universe that was still growing at that time. And I'm reading a lot of Twitter people on Twitter that are saying, because of the hype right now that's going on with the Clone Wars right now, they're diving into Rebels for the first time. And I've seen a lot of tweets like, wow, this is actually better than Clone Wars. You know, and people just haven't really discovered it yet. I don't think all, you know, that are just outside true diehard fans. So, I mean, I hope Kathleen Kennedy and, you know, I think most of them do realize what a special talent Filoni is. You just can't let that guy get away at all, ever.
Yeah. Like I said, give him what he wants.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, that's the thing. It's weird when you think about it. I mean, I feel like the guy doesn't sleep at all anyway, but it's like, what role can he do to make sure that he is? I mean, I feel like if Feige could do it, you know, with what he's doing with the MCU, I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about with Filoni. Like, make him the, you know, Star Wars cinematic, Star Wars universe creative lead. And I mean, it's a lot, you know, I mean, because Marvel is just movies. I mean, when you're talking about movies, TV, comics, novels, I mean, I know it's a lot, but you know, Filoni, you know, he's got to find kind of like him, 3 other people that are like him, and start grooming them, you know, as the next generation, and have them start having that's what makes up the story group, you know, instead of these executives that are really just been. I love Matt Martin and Pablo and all these people, and Leland Shea, but you know, they've been there since it was pre Disney. You know, I know that they've added a lot because it feels like there's been a lot more people in the story group. But again, they're not being. I feel like they're not being shaped by Filoni. They're being shaped by, you know, the other group members. But anyway,
get like a filmmaker or like an author, and then a comic book writer, and put them all on the story group together. That's something that I've kind of wanted for a little while. Is, you know, having people that have actually had experience creating some of this content. So it's less, you know, you might have to have one guy like Pablo, you know, just the Star Wars sort of encyclopedia,
right?
You know, to ask a question, or that just kind of keeps all this information. But then the other people just need to have industry knowledge. Know how to tell those stories or write them.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think that we could. There's just so much more we could deep dive into the philosophy of Star Wars, but that's some good discussions. I think if everybody can, because again, there's a lot of I don't know if there's. I don't know. It's hard for me, honestly, going through what happened with The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. It's like I don't know. I don't know if you guys have a sense. I still can't really gauge truly how much divide there is in the fandom right now. I feel like there's still a lot of people that weren't happy with The Rise of Skywalker, and obviously still not happy with The Last Jedi, and but I feel like if we could, I don't know, if we could all just kind of truly just start trying to look at them as like these values of family, and I don't know, and see that this is you don't have to like the story, but the tone of it is it's good for us. It's good for the world, and what's not is negativity about it. So I don't know. It's get a little preachy right now, but that's what it is.
I mean, that's one reason why I'm also really sad about like Celebration probably going to be canceled, is because I feel like now more than ever, we need Celebration to kind of bring the fans back into that mountain of that peak of positivity for the franchise. And now we're not going to have it probably. So it's how we're going to we're just kind of then hold it together until whenever they do allow us to come back and be in the same room with other fans, so that we can just celebrate what exactly Filoni is trying to tell us, trying to teach us. So no, it's definitely an interesting time. I mean, Twitter is very divisive in general, but yes, also especially Star Wars, it's pretty divisive, and I've definitely stopped looking at it as much now because it's just a lot of the loud voices are ones that aren't happy with a lot of stuff. So it's dangerous.
Yeah, no, I feel like the preaching is necessary. So keep preaching it, because I feel like there's so much Star Wars out there, and there's so much great Star Wars, that it's like there are certain aspects of Star Wars that I appreciate differently or more than somebody else would, or a particular movie or a comic book, whatever. And there's a comic book that I might not want to read. I just might not have an interest in the character. There might be a Disney Plus series they make that I might not be interested in. Now, hopefully there's ever a movie that I'm like, oh, I don't want to see, but they may make a movie about Broom Boy, and I'm just like, I'm not really jiving with it. But somebody out there loves Broom Boy, and if you love Broom Boy, I think that's okay. I think that's something that we all need to realize. Is whatever part of Star Wars you like, that's okay, and we're all fans of it together. And so I think that's that point that Filoni was making, is that it's about family, and luckily things like Celebration and this podcast and things brings us all together. We need to be welcoming as a family of people that like Star Wars. So I feel like that's a challenge that we should all kind of take up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know it tends to weigh on Iger, Bob Iger, and whoever I guess is going to eventually truly take over as CEO. But like, I think there's always this process of profit, thought process of profit, and how do we make money from this? And it's, I know Lucas, it was all him. Obviously, he made it to make what he wanted to make, and luckily it made a ton of money for him. But now that you got the franchise under a big corporate banner like Disney, it's unfortunate that you have to think a lot about specifically what you're going to put out, because is it going to make money? Whereas, like you just said, Cody, if you make content out there, more than likely there are a lot of fans, Star Wars fans, that gravitate particularly to that thing you just created. A comic book goes out. Yes, Cody, you may not read it, but I may read it and love it. But unfortunately, if it doesn't make enough money, they're not going to keep making it, right? So it's tough when you have that mentality a little bit, and I get it. We all work for businesses, or we all work for the same company that we need to make money to survive, and it's I just think, I don't know, if I'm looking at Star Wars, I'm looking at like, well, look, some things are going to hit, some things aren't, but the ones that do should make enough money to cover everything else. But I know it's all about more money, and but it is unfortunate because you have a lot of these stories out there, and there are definitely parts of the fandom that really love this or really love this, and they may not all love it all, but there are definitely aspects of it that are really good. I mean, I just, there's, like you said, books. Like, I've done all the books, and there's definitely a handful of them I'm not really a big fan of, but there's a few that I just absolutely love. Comics, it's all about certain writers. You gravitate towards certain writers. I'm a Charles Soule fan, so I pretty much like whatever he puts out. And you mentioned, Cody, like the season 2 of the Resistance show. I haven't finished it yet. And I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah.
I mean, I just didn't get into it as good as I do with Rebels and Clone Wars. But, anyway. But it's not like I'm going to come out here and just complain about it all the time. It wasn't for me, but it's for somebody.
Exactly.
So, anyway. Okay, Cody, I'll keep preaching. That's fine. So, next week on the next Preacher episode of All right. Tomorrow, actually in about 2 or 3 more hours, the next episode of the Clone Wars is dropping. Season 7, episode 10, The Phantom Apprentice. I cannot wait. I forgot to repeat a tweet that I liked from I probably butchered his name. It's Gianni Aliotti, who is he is a supervises the Clone Wars lighting and effects at Lucasfilm Animation. He simply put out a tweet the other day saying, well, it's Monday, 5 days until the best Star Wars Clone Wars episode you'll ever see. Feel free to hold me to that.
Yeah.
I feel like my eyes aren't ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I need to just stay up until 3 a.m. and watch it.
Yeah, being on the East Coast is tough.
It is, right? Because if we were on the West Coast and it was midnight, I'd definitely be able to watch it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. So anyway, that'll be out. We'll be back next week to dive into that as we get closer to the end of the Clone Wars. And, of course, talk about all things Star Wars, whatever comes out within the week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hope everybody, again, stays safe. Get into Star Wars. Get ready for Star Wars Day. We hope everybody enjoys themselves. Thanks, guys, for coming on. For Cody Geiler.
Bye.
That's it? Just bye?
Just bye. Yeah.
Bye.
See y'all.
For Casey Cooley.
See everybody.
I'm Dave Cottingham. May the Force be with you.